Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Celtic State of Mind Bulletin. My name's Kevin Graham, and on my Wednesday, we've got the new Wednesday club. Is it a club? I'm not 100% sure. We've got Brian and Colin. Brian called us the Wednesday Warriors, and I'm not 100% into that. That sounds like something you see outside a church hall for a swimming club. on a Wednesday.
Well, that's ironic because I'm on here, so I will take that.
I was just going to say, mate, get the lockdown, mate, it'll be the worst news to us, to be fair.
The Wednesday Warriors, I think we should be walking up the hills or somewhere like that. I think that's if anybody in the comments,
team at the head, doesn't it? The Wednesday Warriors.
If anybody's got any ideas what we can call this Wednesday soiree, then let us know.
And keep it clean as well.
Keep it clean. Keep it on the right side of like normality and goodness, and be kind to us. Please be kind to us. There's a couple of folk in the comments saying that we're late. I don't think we're late. That's just turned past. So I don't think what we're doing.
No.
Brian Conway, I know Brian. He comes in the Wednesday Wallopers, and that doesn't surprise me that Brian's came in with that. Truthfully, right. I mean, we're in the middle of a fiesta of football, as I kept on calling it last night with Screamer Celica, and we've got a European draw. So we know in how many days' time it is. I can't actually remember. Where's JP Mason when you need him in his countdown calendar? We play FC Midtjylland from
Denmark.
Yeah. A team that's very familiar to us because we've got Eric Shevchenko, who is with them, and also they played Rangers last year. It was last year, eh?
Last year or the season before, and Rangers run over the top of them.
And the Champions League qualifier. Now, I'm calling them European qualifiers because it is a European qualifier. We need to. I can't see us getting into the Champions League, which we're going to go into further on. I see this as a European qualifier, and this is just to make sure we're in Europe at some form between now and the start of the season. What's your feelings of the draw, Brian?
Yeah, I'm quite happy, actually. I think, listen, you don't want Galatasaray. That was the one you wanted to avoid. Midtjylland, I think I'll take. I think even our makeshift side should still be able to put up a decent fight. He's a decent chance, and I don't think we're on to hiding. Even with the makeshift back line we keep talking about, I think we should have enough in the tank to go in there swinging, and it'll be a decent gauge before the season starts. Actually, I'm quite positive about it. I think it's a decent draw, and I don't think there's much between the teams anyway. And I mean, when I say the teams, I mean the squad now sort of decimated. I think it's just as good as their squad, so I'm excited.
Colin, what's your thoughts about it? I know that you were on doing the State of the Euros earlier on when the draw was made. That was fantastic. I watched that programme. Anybody that hasn't seen it, go back and watch it. Great insight to what's happening at the moment all over Europe. What was your thoughts when it came through in your texts?
I think definitely it's the easiest draw out of the three. That's not to say that it's an easy draw in itself. It is going to be a difficult one. Looking at it, when you look at the pre-season friendlies that we've got and the squad that we're probably going to be using for that, considering the guys that are at the Euros, and then potentially, I know he's probably out the door, but Edward looks as if he's going to be heading to the Olympics as well. So you are going to have a makeshift sort of squad for this round, but looking at it, if we can get through this one, I think it almost guarantees us European football through to Christmas, although it could be the Conference League, but there's some decent teams in that as well. Don't rule that out. You get through this round and you lose the next one, you go into the Europa League playoff, and then if you lose that, you're in the Conference League. So I think we've got the easiest draw at the three. Will it be an easy draw for us to get through? Playing at home first, I'd rather play away. I'd rather know what you've got to do when you get back to Celtic Park. And watching the Denmark game the other night, they looked as if they had a decent amount of fans in the stadium. So that could be a tricky one for us going over there.
It could well be. When you're saying that to stay into Europe, if we get beat off Midtjylland, then we go into the third round Europa League qualifying draw, and we either play Famagusta or Jablonec. That's all. That draw has already been made.
I wasn't aware of that.
Then if we get put out by either one of those two teams, we go into the playoff for the UEFA Conference League Inter-Total Cup, where no draws been made for that. And but if we beat Midtjylland, we can either play PSV, Sparta Prague, Spartak Moscow, or Ghent. So
that's a really difficult draw. That is very, very hard. Very hard. I mean, you look at teams like Ghent. They had the big boy that played up front for them last season that I was saying that Celtic should have went after. He's I think he's 6'7". He banged in about 30 goals last season, and it looks as if he could be on his way to Arsenal. That Belgian league's very strong when you look at it. So we'll do well to get through this round, and then after that, I think, considering the rebuild that you're in, you're looking at Europa League at best.
I think you are. Because even if we had a settled squad, you're probably having a look at Europa League at best. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think so. We've mentioned it before. I certainly don't think you can judge Postecoglou in Europe this season. I think that would be a big ask. And you know what? I would rather, at this moment in time, be in the Europa League and do okay than get into the Champions League and get scalped, because we're quite low in confidence as it is, as a fan base, as a club. So I think Europa League, find our feet in Europe, uses it, and it's still got a very good level, Europa League. Let's not kid ourselves on, and then go for there. So I'd be quite comfortable with that as well.
For me, early success for us would be being in the Europa League. If we manage the amount of change that we're going to have this summer, with Ange bringing in his own culture, his own philosophy, the amount of players that we're going to be coming in, I think if we manage to get into the Europa League, then we've done extremely well. And that's not me being pessimistic. That's just me looking at the task at hand. And the task that we've got in hand is massive. And even to beat Midtjylland, it's absolutely massive, because these guys, Midtjylland are in a process. They're a structured side. They've had a philosophy over the last 5 or 6 years, which has been really, really successful for them. And even though Rangers beat them in the last year or so, Rangers are in a better place than us, a far better place than what we're in. So we're really up against it right away. And we're only 10 days away from We're only 10 days away from registering players for these qualifiers. So you're already looking at the squad that we've got, looking at the players that we've got in the Euros and going, are we going to add anybody in the next 10 days? Before we talk about that, I want to drop in Vienna just for banter stakes. Just for Celtic DA points, I want to drop in Vienna just so we could bring up 1984 and all of that again. But as I say, we're 10 days away from the signing deadline for this round. Do you actually think we'll bring anybody in those 10 days?
Do you think we'll still be interested in Sviatchenko after today's draw?
That was an interesting one. Do you think that's a lazy link, or is there anything in that?
Brian, I'll let you handle that one first.
So, my point of view might be different to people's, because I would take him back in a second. Sviatchenko, I was a big fan of his the first time round, if I'm honest. I think he's left and captained into another 2 league titles. Since he's left, he's always put up Celtic related stuff. He always follows the club. He's got the club at heart. Is it the most ambitious signing? No.
Can we not go for Moussa Dembele then, if that's the case? Can we not get Moussa back if that's the case?
Best of luck. But I think that bringing a guy like that back in, what it does give you is he doesn't need time to bed in. He gets it. We talk about players that get it, managers that get it, that get Celtic, that understand it. And more than ever, we need players in our team that understand it. There's nothing to say that he couldn't come in and take the captain's armband, even for a season, just until the rest of the squad builds, and then we can take for there. He's 29 years old. He's started a good few years in him, but it's not going to be a long-term, sort of build. He's not going to be there forever. But I think bringing him in, he knows the club, he knows how we play. My only slight concern, actually, would be that I know Brendan Rodgers punted him, and Postecoglou plays a similar way to Rodgers, allegedly. So I'm not sure if there was an issue with the training or something like that, or if it just was a good bid. But no, I'm really positive about him coming back. I think that anybody we sign doesn't have a lot of time to bed in or learn Postecoglou's tactics or training methods. We've been linked to a few guys that he's already played with or that he knows well, and I'm quite comfortable getting him in to ease this period of transition. Sweetvenko's someone who's going to come in, shore up defence a bit. More than happy.
Colin, it was interesting that Brian mentioned captain there.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he came back in permanently, he is a candidate to become the captain of the club. Just because of what he's doing in Denmark at this precise moment in time. Now, I think it's a lazy link. I can't see any link whatsoever between Postecoglou and Bagheera. I think it's a lazy link, but when, as Brian says, he's been the captain of this Danish side for the last 2 years. So, is that are we trying to bring in a ready-made captain there?
First of all, I wouldn't sign him, and I do think it is a lazy link. I mean, is he better than Welsh and Helge, who's probably your only 2 fit centre-halves if Chris Ayer does leave? And we're not talking about Beaton. Less said about Beaton, the better. But is he better than them two? Yeah, he's better than them two, but is that the level that we should be targeting as part of this rebuild? If you're bringing him in, he probably goes, you want him to be the squad player that he was before he left. And in that sense, I don't think he would be coming in as a captain. I think if you're bringing someone in who wasn't even captain material when he was there the first time round, and there's guys that's still there, like James Forrest, like Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor's probably the captain in waiting. He's probably the one that's sitting there going, I'm going to get the captain's armband. I think it would be, although he's maybe not the best captain material, it'd be very rude to hand the armband to Sviatchenko if he was to come in over someone like Callum McGregor. It'll be a good squad signing. I wouldn't say he's the one that you want to be kind of handling the centre-back position and guiding someone like Welsh through the start of his career. I think you've got to be targeting a lot better than that. There's a reason he was let go the first time round.
You're talking about leading Welsh through there. I mean, the big fella's in the Danish squad for the Euros, Brian, So surely his experience can help Welsh.
I mean, listen, just for clarity, I don't think he should come in as captain. I just think it's an option. If you talked about a couple of the leaders in the squad, Callum McGregor and James Forrest. Forrest isn't a captain, as much as I love him. And I think giving Calmac the armband this season after Scott Brown with this much pressure, he doesn't need any more pressure. If anything, he needs just time to play his game. Just my opinion. But you can't go wrong with having leaders in your squad. And if Sweetvenko's been captain his Danish side, and he comes in, and even if he's not playing every week and he's no captain, he's still a strong, mature voice. And I think he will guide guys like Welsh through. I actually think Welsh is people talk about getting a first-class centre-back and stuff like that, but I've not got huge issues with Welsh being a first-choice centre-back or one of them. I think we also want to aim higher, but I think the boys can on leaps and bounds, and I think we can only get that experience until Julian comes back. We'll guide that through. And again, I think that if anything, he's going to have experience. He's going to have experience at Celtic Park. He's going to have experience of the pressure. He knows when you need to win. He knows the attitude. And even if he's a squad player, as you rightly said, Colin, which he probably would be, we need at least 2 centre backs. I think it's a no-brainer. But you are right as well. It is a lazy link. I just think it's like a safe option now. I think given how many risks we're going to take this year, I think the safe option is okay. Maybe not for a full rebuild, but one or two I can live with.
I mean, I know he'd definitely win the dance-off. We've seen his dance moves. We saw that at Tynecastle when we won the league. So he'd win that. But let's be honest, who is actually targeting these players? I saw a post the other day that basically said that Celtic are targeting their long-term targets this summer, which suggests to me that one, we've never replaced the scouting system that we let go towards the end of last season, and two, the targets that we've had out there, if we've not been able to get them for a long period of time, then why have we not been able to get them? And Sviatchenko doesn't fit the bill for any of that, because if he was a long-term target, we'd have never let him go. So I don't know if this is just something to get people talking ahead of the Champions League draw, and if Midtjylland want to sell him ahead of the fact that we're going to be playing them in the next round. Does that not kind of set off the alarm bells, to be honest?
It does set off the alarm bells, but again, I'm with you there, Colin. When it appeared last night in the papers, I'm going, well, where did that come from? That is a very, very bizarre link. And it got me thinking, where does Ange Postecoglou know this player from? And there doesn't seem to be a direct link, but that's not to say that Postecoglou's not been thorough with his investigation of the list of names that Celtic have maybe given him. Because if you look at the names that have came in over the last couple of days or so, you've got Aaron Hickey and Martin Boyle, guys that were linked with us at this point last season as well when Neil Lennon was in charge. So obviously they are long-term candidates, targets for our scouting department. We haven't got a head of recruitment. So Martin Boyle, he is Australian, he's an Australian international. I'm sure Postecoglou will know the ins and outs, the faults and the pluses of Martin Boyle. But how much will he know of Aaron Hickey?
Now that's definitely a long-term target, isn't it? I mean, we've known the insight on the Hickey deal for a while, that it was between Celtic, who'd put in several bids for Hickey, and Bologna, where he ended up, and he chose to go to Italy. Why does he want to come home now? Is that again just another? It's someone Celtic's targeted before. It's come back to the times where we were signing Paddy Roberts every transfer window that he was available, or we were signing Benkovic.
Give it time, we'll be linked with Paddy Roberts again.
Oh, we'll be linked with him now after me just saying that there. It'll be on some sort of headline page tomorrow.
This is football.
By the way, I would 100% take Paddy Roberts back, because
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this this early.
No.
I'm not doing this early in the summer. I'm not doing this at all.
I knew that would set you off. No, but looking at it, I mean, Hickey, he would be a good left back. He's not really had a lot of games at Bologna this season because of injury. How much has he actually learned in that time? You come back in, he's up against Greg Taylor. You'd probably say Hickey's now with that extra bit of experience ahead of Greg Taylor. But is he the kind of player that we should be targeting? Again, I know we can't target 11 first-choice players to bring into this team, but they've still got to be, even if they're a squad player, they've still got to be better than the options that we've got in there at the minute, and I'm not 100% sure that's the case.
If we're talking about regurgitating targets, Brown Warrior comes in. Melling would be a better left back than Greg Taylor. So we're back to the guy for Rosenborg who moved to, can't remember where he moved to, but that was the dance now the last couple of years. We're having a look at the Rosenborg left back when we were playing Rosenborg more times than we were playing Dundee United. What do you think, Brian, about all the guff that the papers are having? Are they just flying kites here?
Well, the papers get excited, don't they? Anything to do with Celtic's always a good talking point. So I think they get themselves worked up into a wee frenzy and just get excited with a Celtic-related headline. What I would say about the transfers, though. So again, I understand it's Celtic's fault we're in this position. It's been left too late. But you can't expect Postecoglou to come in, hire a scouting team, get them out scouting players, get reports back, get bids in and get them signed by the time we start the season. He has to work with what he's got. And I fully expect what's happened is Celtic have said, look, these are players we've had on our list for a while. These are the videos we've got of them. These are the links we've got. What do you think are A, B and C players? And he'll say, well, I also think I've got this and this players. And between them, they're going to that's basically his shop list he's got to pick from, because there's no time to send players, because remember, still, a lot of the world's still under COVID restrictions as well, so you're relying on video clips and stuff. So there's no way Postecoglou can come in, and I don't think it's fair to expect him to and say, I want to scout the entirety of Europe for the best signings possible and the highest standard, because quite simply he's not got the time. I agree, it's a poor situation we're in. It's bad handling, but I don't think we can come in and get too... It's a double-edged sword, because I'm not overly inspired by anyone we're linked with so far, if I'm honest. However, I totally understand that that's kind of the situation we're in, and that's why I think it's going to be a longer-term rebuild. You know, if he picks from a lineup of 5 players we've got, gets them in, doesn't like them, we've shut them out, get more players in once his proper scouting system is in place. I think we just not we have to take what we're given, but I think we have to understand that the targets we've got are what we're going to have to shop from.
See, when you look at it, but Postecoglou obviously had to look at clips from last season. Surely he's not going to come in blind to knowing the kind of players that's there, right? And if they're doing that,
players coming in, that's
what I was getting to. Like, if he knows what he's got there, and he knows that this is the job that he's going to be taking. I mean, how long was it between the kind of Howe thing and him actually getting appointed? I mean, it was obviously appointed a couple of days before it because they still managed to turn around a Celtic TV interview on it. So he has to have been looking at that squad, seen from the clips who he likes, who he doesn't like, knowing the positions that he's going to have to target. And I know, obviously, he was still in charge of Yokohama at that time, but he's still got to be, you've got to think he's one step ahead to go, right, so I need a right back. I've seen X, Y, and Z. I'm going to suggest that to Mackay. We need a centre mid. I've seen X, Y, and Z. But tomorrow's a week since he was appointed. And I'd like to have thought in that time we've started to make some moves for the players that either Celtic had on a list or he had on a list. Because at the end of the day, he's the guy that's going to have to work with them. So as much as Celtic say we think you should sign X, Y, and Z, if he thinks I'm not going to get a performance out of him, he shouldn't be bringing them in. This comes back to when Brendan Rodgers was given Marion Sved and he hadn't heard of him about a week beforehand. You can't get into that position again. This is what went wrong the first time round. This is a rebuild. This is meant to be a new era. You can't keep making the same mistakes that you did previously.
What you're looking at there, when introduction videos dropped last Thursday, and both parties, Postecoglou and Don Mackay, both says they had just been speaking for a number of weeks. They had been speaking about targets, about vision, about modernising the club, about where they were going. I'm sure at that point, Postecoglou, going by the videos that we've seen of him, going by the talks that he's actually gave, there's an interesting one where he talks about moving to Yokohama, that he knew everything about that club before he went in. Before he actually walked through that door, he knew everything. And for me, I think that he'll be doing the same at this precise moment in time about Celtic. And he won't be coming in like blind. He'll know what we'll need. But I'm also wondering as well if he is going to end up going to the City group and going, because Yokohama have got a close link to the City group, and it's easy for him to tap into that scouting system and go, right, I need a right back. See that boy I was looking at Japan, he can do a job for me. And I think you might see quite a few City group links coming in the short term. Why, as Brian actually says, we get all our ducks in a row, as everybody seemed to have said 2 weeks ago, which seems to be out of fashion now because all our ducks are in a row. Those seem to have sunk. Brian,
sorry, Kev. I don't actually think that's a bad idea. I mean, we're talking about a rebuild that both yourself and Brian have said is going to take more than one season to do. Now, if it lets you go on and look for actual experienced players that you're going to be able to sign, then you have to use the contacts that you've got, because you're sitting at a position at the minute where the squad is pretty thin bare and you're going to be losing some big players. If it means that you're able to sign maybe 2 or 3 players from Manchester City or any part of the City group, we were looking at signing Maresca as the manager. So obviously what he's doing down there is something that we can look at the players that he's got there. And there's some of them that are very, very exciting young talents. You've got to come up and fill in the squad at the minute. As you said, if it's going to be a longer rebuild, at least you can put in some quality until you get the players that you're actually looking for. Brian,
what do you think of that? Do you think we're going to go down that route?
Well, I mean, I don't really get the distinction between what if Celtic are offering Postecoglou targets that they've already scouted, and then we're saying that's not a good way to go, but there's a City group pick for that. It's the same thing. We're still telling him this is your pool. But I don't think there's any doubt that Postecoglou knows what he needs. I don't think there's any doubt. There's nothing to suggest that he's not looking for a whole new defence, a keeper, strikers and stuff like that. I just think that, and I think you're right. I think, and I've said, I think we're probably looking at a couple of bigger name signings, maybe really strong centre half, strong striker, and then some loan signings or some free transfers to fill the gap until we all sort of, as you say, get the ducks in a row. So I think the point we're all making, I think, in different ways, is that he's limited with what he's going to have to. He's not going to have the scouting system in place. He's going to have to pick from a certain bracket, whether that's City groups or loanees or people that's already been scouted. In neither situation, I think it's great, but I think it's what he's going to have to work with for the moment.
What I was maybe meaning, and I've maybe says it badly, was he's had access to the City Group database for 3 years, scouting database for 3 years, and he'll have extensive knowledge of that database. So if Celtic come to him and go, by the way, we quite fancy Charlie Wake from Sunderland, Postecoglou has a look at him and go, no, I ken a guy who has been, I've watched for 2 and a bit years on this database, which can do a job for us. So that's what I was kind of meaning, that he's already got an extensive knowledge. It's not that Celtic will be giving him that database. He will. That's where his knowledge is going to sit. That's where his knowledge is going to sit. So he maybe won't know the boy Nisbet for Hibs, but he watches a guy Nisbet for Hibs, and if he goes, well, that's better than any option that I know, then Celtic may bid for the guy Nisbet for Hibs. But it's, as you say, it's going to be a bit of a mix and match, pick and mix here for the next 6-7 months or whatever, And I think Celtic have already gave us that impression that, by the way, we better strap ourselves in because this is not going to be a quick fix. What do you think, Colin?
I agree with you, mate. Charlie Wake. Honestly, that's one of them signings. It's like somebody has one good season and then the next thing they're on a big move. I mean, all you need to take a look at is how Ollie McBurney done when he scored a couple of goals in them kind of leagues. You wouldn't sign him either. He's not even a footballer. But that's the thing. There is going to be this kind of it's going to be a mix of like free transfers and loans and probably investments in certain positions. So if he's got this extra pool that he can look into that potentially wouldn't be available to us before, then that's a good thing to have. We are now sitting in a situation where we spent sort of like £30 million last season, and we've not seen the benefit of that again. Is there players there that you can also develop? I mean, guys like Barkas, is he just going to be completely written off? It looks as if we've sent Encham out to AEK Athens to cover what was left of the money that was owed to AEK in that sense. So is then Barkas now free to be transferred? You're looking at guys like Ayeti up front, who is still relatively young in terms of football. You're looking that surely you can get something out of him. So as much as we're looking at guys that's coming in, we've also got to look at what Postecoglou can do to the players that's already there, and who have we actually got coming through as well. So get them in the country, get them into the training. Obviously, it's going to take some time with the quarantine and things like that, but he must have a couple of players that you're going to want to pick up earlier in the window, and we've got 10 days to do that before the Champions League. I'll be surprised if we get 1 or 2, to be perfectly honest.
Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, Colin, I think you're spot on, actually. You touched on something that I'm really excited about, actually, is developing players. Look at how good David Turnbull could be when he's got a real strong fitness coach. You know, someone gives him... If you get an improved David Turnbull over the David Turnbull we've already got, something special there. I can't wait to see him develop under a really strong manager, and I think Postecoglou, by all accounts, favours that attacking sort of flair player. Even guys like Sorrell, with a bit more discipline, could really be a special player for us. I think looking at Postecoglou's previous tactics, the way Forrest, cuts in, lets the fullback overlap, is ideal for the way he plays. I think he can get a tune out of Johnson. And then you get guys like Luke O'Connell and Scott Robertson I think can develop. So one of the things I can't wait for, actually, this season, although I agree with both, I think it's a season I don't want to say it's a write-off, but I don't have the expectations for this season. I should have probably. But one of the things I can't wait for is to see these guys improve and you see how exciting a really motivated, disciplined, tactically aware Turnbull and Sorrell is. Callum McGregor back to his best, Forrest in form. I think we've got a lot to look forward to. And also, if you can get these guys playing in a way that they get that attractive Celtic football back, they'll play in the Celtic way. It's something we've wanted for a while, and I get there's been some journalists saying things about don't worry about the defence, it takes care of itself and we'll have fun, but it does harken back to guys like Tommy Burns' team that played some of the best football any Celtic fans ever seen, loved it. The definition of the Celtic way, and I'm desperate to get that back as well and be really proud of watching my team. So I think there's so much to look forward to this season, and you hit the nail on the head, Colin and Kev. Developing some of the guys that are already there, it's going to be one of the most exciting parts, I think.
We may get a surprise that some names that we haven't even thought of might actually make a breakthrough this season. And that's what we're hoping for, and that is blind hope. And we do, at this precise moment in time, all we've got is blind hope, because we haven't seen what Postecoglou can do, and we haven't got a structure there. We haven't got the plan in there. This is back of a fag packet stuff. Yeah. David Kelly comes in and goes, What am I listening to? Man City are the only team allowed to scout players. As if they have some boys sitting in a cupboard with a magic ball that they share with the City group. Well, if you have a look at our signing targets over the last couple of years, the majority, you've got Beaton, Wanyama, Denier, Guedetti. There's a whole list of them all came for the Man City group. So it's quite clear that our scouting has been blinkered by certain agents and certain football clubs. And that's what we need to get rid of. But at this precise moment in time, it's no there, because we haven't got a head of recruitment. We haven't got a director of football. We haven't got a manager in the country. It's an utter chaotic mess. And what we're actually saying here is, by the way, this is a long-term turnaround here. This club's getting modernised, and we may not like it for a number of months, a number of years. But hopefully, if we can say in 5 years' time, that appointing Postecoglou was the right decision. If we look back on that and we were sitting where we are in 5 years' time, and if it's utterly successful, we can go, by the way, see that pain for a year or two, it was worth it for where we are now.
Definitely. And I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of this, because unfortunately I have to drop for work reasons. But it was great to be on the first sort of Wednesday Wallopers, I think we're now called. So that's the working title at the minute. Good to be on and meet you, Brian, and I'll be back next week.
See you later, Colin.
Cheers, Colin.
See you later. Now, since Colin's away, it's me and you again, Brian. Do you think that, like, William Joseph, Daniel Mick comes in there about Aaron Moy, 30-year-old, and he's been linked with Celtic as well. Do you think that would be the type of Scott Sinclair type signing that you might see Postecoglou want to bring in? Somebody that buys into what he's going to try and do?
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's that juxtaposition between what I want and who I want Celtic to be signing versus who I think they'll sign. And then somewhere in the middle is this, because I said that we were linked with the Japanese lad, Edu Onwayu, I think that's how you say his name. I hope it is. If you're watching, Edu, I'm sorry. Guys like him, Moy coming in, they know Postecoglou, they know how he works, they know his training, they know where he likes to play, they know his character. Given the fact that Postecoglou himself keeps talking about how much time he needs to change a club around, if you get 3 or 4 players in, spinning a team that already know how he plays, that can only make that quicker. And I think we've got the players, I've mentioned them, Sorrell, Turnbull, Forrest, McGregor. I think they're smart enough footballers and capable enough footballers to adapt quickly. I think guys like that, even for a season to tide us over until everything comes into place, is good signing. In any other season, if you told me we were signing a 30-year-old from, where does it even play? Is it China he plays?
Shanghai, eh?
Shanghai, the Shanghai Shufflers. If you're saying a 30-year-old for them, I would say it's unambitious, it's not what we need. But just given the current situation, I think it's actually probably a decent idea. And do you know what? If it's we keep talking about how we want Postecoglou to make decisions. If that's the guys he's picking, we can't then complain about it, unless they're wrong, obviously. But yeah, I'm kind of, again, I'm not overly on board with it, but I think it will work for what we're going to need to do.
We're hoping it's going to work because it's quite. I says 2 weeks ago on the Wednesday Club that I was just going to judge Postecoglou as Celtic manager only, and that's all. I can only just judge him as Celtic manager, but I've went back and started watching the cinema, the talks that he's done, the leadership talks and that, the leadership talks and that he's done, and the Hermsman's just chapped my door, but he'll leave it at the door, didn't worry about that. And there was one thing, that there was a video I watched this morning, and I can't remember where it was. It was something that he'd done 4 or 5 years ago when he was a manager in Sydney. And one thing that really struck me, and on the back of Neil Lennon's comments yesterday about us chasing Peter, about not us, not me and you, Brian, but the Celtic fans chasing Peter Lawwell out the club. He was doing this talk, this leadership talk, and the slide behind him actually says, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." And he says, "We get told that, and that's a load of rubbish." He says, "That slogan is the slogan of the complacent, the arrogant, or the scared." And I think that sums up Celtic Football Club at this precise moment in time, because we've had 13 years of, or however long it is, 17 years of Peter Lawwell, and there was too many people going, we're winning leagues. This is great. This is always going to last. This is always going to last. And the complacence and the arrogance came in when they decided that they could get away with appointing Neil Lennon rather than keeping going with a Brendan Rodgers type. When I saw that slide, I got further on board with him. I'm going, wait a minute, you could be coming in here at the right time. Yes, I've got doubts about him. Of course I've got doubts about him. But then I started thinking about what John Barnes used to call your unconscious bias. And if I had been watching Postecoglou doing this talk and saying he had been managing in the Bundesliga, or he'd been managing in the English Premiership, I'm just waving to my Hermsman there, sorry lads, or he had been managing in the English Premiership, we would be right on board with him. We would be lauding him all over the shop. But the fact is, it's the fear of the unknown, and it's the fear of where he's been appointed from and the reasons that he's been appointed, i.e. where he put all our eggs in the Howe basket. But when you listen to him talk, I think there's a bit of an unconscious bias coming through here. For me anyway, I sort of realised that when I started watching him.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I remember first round, the whole world, or the whole Celtic world went, who's this guy? Can't even say his surname. You know, we've all done our research and we've all looked at YouTube clips and stuff like that. But the reason I was excited about him, as I keep sort of saying, is because I sort of bought into what he was saying. I bought into this idea of, I'm going to change things. This is how I'm going to play. This is how I'm going to do it. And that's it. And I watched the same conference you watched, and I thought that stuck out to me as well. I thought that was absolutely excellent. And I love the fact that the guy says anytime he's ever learned anything, you know, you try and do it better. You try and advance on it. So I think you're right. I think there's a bit of bias behind it. The flip side of that is he always talks about how much time he needs.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pretty much said he doesn't care what anybody says, he's going to do it his way, which is admirable. If you'd have said to me, look, we're going to have a season of pain, we're going to get back to playing good football, we're going to get back to challenging, we're going to bring through some youth, but the next 2 seasons we're going to dominate, I would take that. I'm not convinced of the Celtic fans that are complaining that we're being too negative. I think they'll turn quickly on him 3 months into the season if it's not gone well. I think the best becomes, you can be as positive if you like about him, but you need to buy into him, as he said before. If he says this isn't a 1 season fix, you need to buy into that and trust him, because I don't think and I think him and Don Mackay share the same vision. And I don't think they criticise him, no matter how much people get excited and upset if it doesn't go well so far this season. I think he'll be there for the long haul. And I think that's a thing that we've needed for a long time. He's actually someone to come in and build a sort of a legacy, bring players through, get them playing a certain way and constantly build on that, reshape the club from top to bottom. And I think that's what we've been asking for. I just don't think we can expect it in a season.
I don't think so, and I don't think he's going to promise that. And everything I've seen about him talking and everything that experts, I'm going to use inverted comma, the Neil Lennon rabbit ears and that, have said that it will take him a while. And the conference that me and you are talking about, he basically says, well, I'll make a decision for what I think's right, and if it costs me my job, it will cost me my job. And that's a devil may care attitude that he thinks he's not going to change. I had it in my back of my mind that maybe I was having a look at his Australian side, and I'm going, will this be the best squad of players that he's worked with? And you look at the Australian side, you go, no, that Australian team's going to be better. But did he tweak his philosophy at any point? And it doesn't seem like it has. It seems like this is his philosophy. It was the philosophy he's been brought up with, and he basically says that when his team plays football, they play a certain way, as if his dad is sitting up in the stand going to enjoy the way his team's playing football. Sometimes he'll learn very quickly that results matter to a lot of the Celtic support, and that's the be-all and end-all. And when he says things like, I would rather win 4-3 than 1-0, again, you do take that big, deep intake of breath at stuff like that, because he does verge on the Tony Mowbray point at that point. But you're talking about belief, and he talks about belief quite a lot. He talks about belief all the time. I didn't need to believe in Postecoglou. 24 guys in the Celtic dressing room have got to believe in Postecoglou. And that's where Ronnie Dyler failed, because he couldn't get that. He couldn't get a core of players to believe in what he was trying to do. I mean, I was at a fans forum with Ronnie Dyler, and after I heard him talking, I would have run through a brick wall for him. But then I'm no Chris Commons, I'm no Charlie Mulgrew, I'm no Anthony Stokes, I'm just a rotten Sunday League football player who got, you're right, mate, I know what you're talking about. So Postecoglou doesn't need to convince me, he's got to convince the 24 boys in his squad.
The brilliant thing about that, though, one of the things he was talking about was the fact that he takes the pressure off the players. He takes all the criticism, all the pressure, all the expectation on his own big shoulders, and lets the players, and he tells them, as long as you're doing what you're told and playing my way, you're fine. Regardless of the result, as long as you're doing what I'm asking, you're playing. If I'm a player, that's a nice safe atmosphere to express yourself. You know, how many players in Scotland do you see doing a step over? Or a wee tricky flick, or anything like that? How many Celtic players do you see trying something a bit braver, a bit of magic that might not normally do it? And I think it's a fear of failure, maybe. And there's an argument that if they're good enough, they shouldn't care about that. But I think the younger players, particularly, will thrive under that sort of management. Because the thing about it is he's not saying results don't matter. He's telling the players, don't you worry about results. If you do what I'm asking, results will come. Just trust in the process. So he's no, it's easy to mistranslate, but he's not saying results don't matter, just play football. He's telling them, if you do it my way, it will take care of itself. And he's taking the pressure on himself, because he also said as well that he absolutely hates getting beat at anything. He said if he had any pets, he would kick them if he lost a game. You better watch when he says that these days.
I know.
But I think that if you're a player, you're going to buy into him a lot. And he seems to have the strength of character, for good or for bad, that he won't take fans' criticism, which you no doubt get at some point, and probably rightly so. I mean, listen, I'm being his big cheerleader just now. If he loses his first 3 games, your attitude may change, but I think we almost have to collectively commit to him and his vision, because the reality is he's the manager now, and there's no point in moaning about it and saying we should go this guy or that guy, or I don't buy into him, because ultimately we're going to be there supporting them. We need to just sort of We need to buy in, and I almost think him and Dom should come out and be very explicit, almost probably after season tickets, but I'm very explicit and say, look, this is a 2 or 3 year thing, and you know, we know it's going to hurt, but this is what we're going to do. You've been asking for a vision, you've been asking for clarity. This is it, and then, you know, we're going to support the team regardless, but you just hope you get the buy-in and we can all get a bit of momentum behind them.
You mentioned the first 3 games in that there, eh? And you mentioned the first 3 games. So the fixture list came out yesterday, and it's 45 days until we run out at Tynecastle at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. I'm going to go off at a tangent here, just one of my wee hingies. That stand at Tynecastle that the half-white line's no in line with the tunnel, that really bugs me. And Hearts need to sort that. That really annoys me when I see that on the telly. I'm sorry, I just had to get that out there and I'll mention it once I watch it again because it does really bug me. The half-white line's no in the middle of the tunnel. That's what annoys me. So we've got 45 days before we go to Tynecastle. We've then got Dundee at home. The first round of fixtures are Hearts at Tynecastle, Dundee at home, St Mirren home, Rangers away, Ross County home, Livy away, Dundee United home, Aberdeen away, Motherwell away, St Johnstone home, and Hibs away. We've got every hard away game in the first round of fixtures that we could have picked. It is a tough baptism of fire when we're ripping up the club and starting again. And you've got to have some bit of sympathy for the manager.
Oh, you absolutely have. Again, there's a couple of ways of looking at that. So he's facing all the toughest away games right away. If they don't quite go as well, what he's got is a chance further in the season where the team's a bit more attuned and, you know, a bit more in line with his philosophies to correct those mistakes and collect them at home. So in a way, it's almost better pulling the plaster and getting some of the harder fixtures out the way. Because the other thing is, if he wins them, you know, 15 points for your first 5 games, he's off to a flyer. You know, if he goes to Ibrox and puts them in their place, what a start he's off to. Suddenly, the momentum really goes his way. So I think if they don't start well, I think he'll get the benefit of the doubt because everyone understands the position. But if he does get them right, wow, what a beginning. And suddenly the confidence fuels. So on paper, it's a bit of a nightmare. I did take the sharp intake of breath when I first saw it, but
that pesky computer, man. That pesky computer. It's random generator of fixtures, you know.
Aye, random generator, brilliant. But I mean, I think in a way the one that worries me at them all is the first one, Hearts at Tynecastle, 8 o'clock Saturday night. That's a tough way to start your season. I know they're coming up for the Championship, but they're a Premiership side that's been playing in the Championship. They'll be absolutely chomping at the bit to beat Celtic. They'll feel aggrieved at the Scottish Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be motivated, and I don't know if they're going to be fans or not, but if there's fans in Tynecastle, that's a hard place. That's a baptism of fire right off the bat. But again, if he gets a good result there, that's a huge boost, and I think that'll allay a lot of fears. But a tough start for the big fella.
Right, I've got to go into my parallel universe here. So he's done an invincible season in Australia, right? Brendan Rodgers done an invincible season at Celtic, which all started at Tynecastle. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just putting that out there to anybody that wants to have a think about that. The fixtures. I was having a look at the fixtures, and my hope. Colin, before Colin went away, asked us on the WhatsApp group last night, what do you think would be the fixture you're going to that could be a turning point with yourself? What fixture do you think? Do you think in the first one's massive, or what's your thoughts? Where would you want to be having a look at the fixtures in certain ones?
So I think. So I've sort of mentioned the first fixture. I think that's a real hard one. The obvious one is the Rangers game at Ibrox. That's a big one. But I actually think it's the games at home against St Mirren, Dundee, because they're 2 games that he should be winning. And I think they could be good because if he shoots on a clinic, it gets a good performance, good few goals in, then although that's kind of what you expect, that's a good marker for him to start building on. They're the riskier ones. People will be furious, but if you drop any points at Tynecastle, drop any points at Ibrox, they are probably your 2 hardest away games. You drop points at home against St Mirren or Dundee, that's going to be detrimental. So I think, in a way, they're almost more important. In a way, although of course, Tynecastle and Ibrox are the hard ones.
What I'm looking at, I'm going further. Instead of Tynecastle on the first day of the season, it's Tynecastle on the 26th of January 2022, the first game back after the winter break. And if we were still in touch at that point, 6 months into the project, I would be looking for us to kick on at that point. Go to Dubai we might not go to Dubai again, I shouldn't have to say that. Wherever we're going to go in the 2 weeks in January, if we're allowed to go anywhere.
Sunbeds this year, Kev. Just send to the sunbeds.
Anstruther, we're going to Anstruther. We're up and down the beach. If we're still in touch on that point, going into the final run of the season, I will be over the moon. I will be over the moon. And that's maybe just me glass half empty, but I know the size of the rebuild that we've got. And having listened to the man speak, I'm like, we're going to need to give him time. And yes, we will have the resources, which means that we could win probably more games than we actually lose, unless there's an utter disaster. But if we're still maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 points behind going into those final 2 rounds of games, I will be over the moon. I really will. And because of the amount of overhaul that we've actually got.
Agreed. And I think it's interesting. I think by that time, you would expect the director of football to be in. Mm-hmm. For Mark Lowell to be taking his seat as director of football.
Or somebody else for the City group.
Somebody else for the City group. We might get Guardiola in, who knows? But you'd expect him his full recruitment team in, the players up to speed, and then looking at players over that from January to the end of the season for next season, and for to get in ahead of the Champions League qualifiers. So I think that's right. It's going to be so interesting to see where we're at in January.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. You never want to, as the Adidas slogan was, you never want to settle for second best. Of course you don't. And I don't think they'd be settling for second best. But I think we'd be realistically saying, you know what, given the situation, given the disaster we've faced, this isn't bad. We're playing good football. We're in touch. Everything's in place now. We can actually see the roadmap moving forward. I agree with you. I think that'd be a decent position to be in.
I think it is. And obviously, Celtic yesterday came out with how to get season ticket holders back into the ground. You need to register. I mean, they've maybe read the room wrongly as well. If you've already renewed your season ticket, you want to go to the games. So asking you, do you want to go to the games, feels completely bizarre. But watching this Euros tournament with fans in it, what a difference it makes. What a difference. Even the 12,000 that were inside that bowl atmosphere sucking Hampden on Monday, they generated an atmosphere up until we went 2-0 down, and then it disappeared. But having fans there is going to make so much of a difference to the club. How do you think do you think that's going to add extra pressure to Postecoglou, or the team are going to have to get bedded in and used to, the fans are going to get, I mean, it must be strange for them playing with fans there again.
I think it's interesting if you look at how quickly people adapt to things. Most of us work from home now. They never done that before. I hated it at first. A few months in, used to it, knew I love it. I think when the players go out in the park, I think any player will tell you that they prefer fans there. Whether they're under pressure or not, any decent player will tell you they prefer fans there. And I think the Celtic players will be 10 foot taller when there's fans there. I think it will really, really benefit them. I think Postecoglou I think he'd be smart enough to get it, and I think if there is, jeers, if he's not playing well, I think he seems sort of single-minded enough that he'll take that. I think he'll be all right with that. I think he'll try and shield the players, but I think the players themselves, I think will absolutely love it. And I think as well, what you'll see is the although last year was a write-off for many reasons, but some of the players that came to Parkhead would have shrunk under the pressure of playing in front of Celtic fans. They would have absolutely hated it. And that's the mark of a good player. The mark of a good player is being able to play in front of fans that are on your back or cheering you. And if you're an opposition player and the Celtic fans are on you, you're going to feel it. So I think unequivocally it's brilliant news if we can get Celtic fans back.
Now, Celtic have says in the fans forum meeting, Don Mackay says that they reckon they will have between 25 and 30,000 in for the start of the season. Now, obviously, that's going to depend on how many season ticket holders, and it will only be season ticket holders will get the opportunity to go to those below capacity games to start off with. I'm just wondering how much goodwill is actually there with the fans. I mean, because you have a look at the messages that they sent out yesterday. No season ticket deadline. There's a season ticket deadline. They're not going to extend the season ticket deadline. It was almost like a gun to your head. It's either are you in or are you out. I don't think that's a good look. No,
I mean, listen, part of the problems in the relationship between Celtic fans and the club, and Celtic fans and each other, is because it's so frustrating. The PR side of Celtic Football Club now, the media communication team. Wow, I mean they're right up there. They're right up there with Neil Lennon's PR team now. It's some of the strangest strategy I've ever seen at any level, any business, any football club. And I think that they are eroding the goodwill. But what's going to happen is Celtic's like Celtic's one of those things that you love, and it's in your blood, and it's it's at your core. And as frustrated as you are with the PR team and the board, when it's time to start playing, you want to go and see the hoops. You want to cheer them on. You want to watch them. You want to be part of that. So the goodwill will come back if things start to improve in the park. And I think, we're hearing about how good Don Mackay's communication is going to be. And I think he's got to be aware. I mean, he's a clever guy. He's got to be aware that the timing of some of these statements over this season has been absolutely atrocious. I mean, was it something like the day after the protest after Ross County, we get offered Christmas jumpers?
Yes.
I mean, you've got to think that the wind up at some point. But I think with just a few. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but you saw when they done the one club since 1888 hashtag. That was one hashtag, and it got people back on board for a wee while. And I just think if they change their media strategy a bit, which hopefully they will, I think fans will start to forgive and forget. But again, they've got to do that quickly. They've got to do that very quickly.
I must admit, that hashtag, I probably agree with Jim Orr when he says it's like we are the people for the good guys. And I wasn't on board with it because everything the PLC have done since 2012 has says that they're no one club, that they're part of the old firm, and they've done everything in their power to keep the old firm alive. So until that changes, I'm always going to treat that one club since 1888 with the disdain it actually deserves in my mind, actually. Roberto 64 comes in on YouTube. Mackay needs to decide whose side to be on, the board or the fans. I suggest he would be wiser to be on the side of the fans and to undermine his board as subtly but as effectively as possible. I think Dom has to get the fans back on side, and he's got to. And for me to get the fans back on side, he's got to read the room and start doing the right thing. And I think the £50 voucher was the wrong thing. I do think that was a complete. I take that £50 voucher to be another slap in the face, where it was an afterthought. It was almost like we need to do something, and this is what they've came up with. There's £50 to spend in our own shops. No, hold on, that's not what we're asking. We're asking you to do the right thing by your fans, which was if you wanted a discount or a partial refund, then you were able to get it. Not just, here's £50 to go and spend in your shop after you've renewed. The other thing
it's just to pick up on that comment, I think that's the ridiculous comment. I think to suggest that Dom has to pick either the fans or the board or start undermining the board. All that brings us is this as a name. What Dom has to do is get everyone aligned. The players, the fans, the board. The Trinity, as Brendan Rodgers calls it. I think to suggest that Dom has to undermine the board or start a war with the board or put the fans over the board, you can't have that. I get the sentiment. He has to understand the fans' frustrations, and I think he will. But to suggest that you have to pick one or have to start undermining the board, no, for me, it has to be an alignment of the three. And it's a big job to do it. And he has to put fans first out of that three. Mm-hmm. But to suggest you want some sort of a war between the board and Dom is a fallacy, and I don't think it's going to work.
He's got a massive couple of weeks. More than a couple of weeks. He's got a massive couple of months, and they've got to get more decisions right than wrong. And that's on the way that we're going to go forward. Brian, I think we'll call it a day. If we've been on for an hour, and we'll let people get back to work and do whatever they need to do. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all your comments. Remember subscribing that, and remember just be nice to folk, and folk will be nice to you. Calm down, everybody, and see you later.